able to get some sort of shade. And there in front of us, you can see, is our male lion in the long grass, and next to him is his female. So this is the little romantic couple that we've got here. Now, I'm not 100% sure which Birmingham male this is. It looks like Nsuku again, but I might be wrong. So for those of you that know the lions, if you want to let us know who this is. I can't see very nicely at all. The grass is all in his face and obscuring him a little bit. But it is definitely one of the Styx females on the right. That I know for sure. I'm trying to see if his canine is broken. It does look like it is. Doesn't it, Vim? It is, hey. So is this good old Tinyo? Is it his bottom left canine, Vim?
Bottom left.
Yeah, and it must be Tinyo that we've got here with this female. So we had Nsuku with one of the females the other day, and now we've got Tinyo, so they've just done a trade. And we were chatting about it actually, and we were saying that females will sometimes mate with all four of the Birminghams in order to be able to ensure the safety of the cubs. But you can see that this boy is hot. Look at how his mouth is open already. He's already starting a slow pant. So he's starting to get a little bit warm. You'll find that what they're going to do is through the day today is they're going to just follow the shade around and try and position themselves in shade, because it's going to be very warm for them today. And anytime the female moves, you'll see that he'll move and he'll kind of move his head. Oh, hello boy. Just repositioning himself into a terrible place for us. You can see he's almost disappeared now. So even though they've got those big manes, male lions can camouflage quite well even in this long grass. There you can see the female. She's almost invisible. If it wasn't for that little black tuft to the ear, we would really be struggling to see this lioness. These guys are going to be good for hunting in this area, because if they sit in this particular piece of grass, then lots of animals on the airstrip that they're going to be able to then launch an attack from here. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on. Now I know yesterday apparently they managed to grab a warthog during the day. Malia, you're wondering if it's true if African lions can live in the cold as well. Well, they can. That they don't really like it, so you'll find with them that most of the time they're spending their time in the hot savanna areas and plains of Africa, but sometimes what happens is people have moved them into other parts of the world, so into zoos into Eastern Europe and Northern Europe, and it gets really, really very cold there, and unfortunately the lions then have to deal with it. Now the thing is what happens is when they're in those kind of places, you'll end up with a situation where the lions will get much bigger, thicker manes on the males, and the female's coat gets very, very long to try and sort of insulate them and keep them nice and warm. So I have seen lions that are living in places like the Berlin Zoo, where there is snow regularly, and they lie in the snow and they just get much thicker woolly coats that allow them to survive in that. But it really isn't ideal. A lion is not really designed to be in very, very cold conditions like that. Well, not anymore anyway. When they used to occur throughout Europe and Asia, then there would have been some that would have occurred in colder climes, but now they've all been hunted out, and really the sort of only populations of African lions are all in warm areas. You don't find them in any of the cold places. They don't even go up onto Mount Kilimanjaro, which is probably got the only snow cap that we see where wildlife occurs. They tend to not even go up anywhere near where the snow forms on that area. So they prefer warmer conditions. They are not an animal that likes cold weather at all. Although they also don't like it too hot. You can imagine it must be so uncomfortable to be a big male lion when there is 40-degree or 50-degree heat coming down and very little shade. It must be very uncomfortable, especially if you've eaten. VM, should we try reposition so we can get a better view of these two lions? What do you think? I think so. Because where we are right now, all we're seeing is grass at this stage. Sorry, I was just taking my jersey off there. I do apologize. It was getting quite warm now, especially now that we're stationary. When you're driving, there's still a little bit of sort of coolness to the air, but when you're stationary and in the sun, it's very, very hot. So it's just needed to get rid of that, and we also just need to try and get around this tree because our aerial won't fit underneath there. But if we go this way, we should be perfect. Now, I did see another lioness when we came in, so I'm not sure if the whole Styx Pride is here or what the situation is, but hopefully all of them are here, and the little cubs too. Be nice to see them and see how they're doing. And like I say, they managed to catch a warthog during the day yesterday, so they had a good meal at least. Now, just want to slowly edge in here. Tell me when is good for you. Tom, you're wondering how old this male lion is that's lying in the grass like this. Well, he now is probably about 7 years. That's what we think. We're not 100% sure on the exact age, so we can't give you months, but we know that they were in the Timbavati area as younger males in 2013, and at that stage they were looked as though they were about 3-4 years old, so they were still with their pride, and then they left that area and ended up coming up into the Sabi Sand, or down into the Sabi Sand, should I say, and they've been here now for about 3 years, so they would make them about 7 years old. So in the prime of his life at the moment, he's at the age where he's going to be his most powerful, his body's in his best condition, and they like this until about 10 years old. Then from 10 they start to kind of break down a little bit, their bodies start to get a little bit tired, their teeth start to wear, claws start to wear, then younger males come in, and it becomes much harder for these guys to sustain their territory, and by the time they reach 12 to 14 years, they typically are at the end of their lifespan and then passing away. So he's halfway through his life at this stage, which is, like I say, the best years of a male lion. He's territorially dominant, he's got a strong coalition. So beautiful. We don't name all the animals out here because we would have a serious issue with remembering the names of all the impalas. You can imagine having to keep track of thousands and thousands of impala names, as well as to be able to even ID them. But in terms of the territorial animals, they generally are the ones that get some sort of ID. So you'll find like lion prides, coalitions, territorial leopard. They tend to have names, which is more just an ID kit. So it's to be able to work out who is who, where they come from, where their movements are, so that we know that the lineages of certain animals and how that all fits in. And a lot of the research purposes, they need to know different animals to be able to know where they're moving and to monitor their kind of progress and where they're going. The wild dogs also, the packs have names just for the research purposes so that they can know which packs are which and be able to sort them out. So these guys, that's why they get a sort of name. It's not really naming as in this is this animal and we name it like our pet. It's more just an ID name to be able to work out who is who and be able to then follow their progress through life. A lot of the data, even what we see here on Safari Live, we log on to Panthera. Now Panthera is an organization that had developed a system that you can basically every day upload the sightings that you've had, and you put little pins on maps, and from that they can glean all the data and the movement of these animals and see how they're going and see what environmental changes and how that affects where they move around. So it's quite a good thing to do and quite a good thing to have, and so that's why they have these names. But you can see they are absolutely flat at the moment. It's because of how warm it is. It's not a very pleasant time for a lion. They want to wait for the darkness of night to come back where they can be a little bit more active. Although these lions haven't really left the airstrip for the last 5 days, so hopefully they'll continue to stay here because it's quite nice just to come here and know that they'll be here. Now we're going to stay for a little bit longer and we're going to see, hopefully we'll get some movement, maybe there'll even be a bit of mating, and while we do that, let's go across to Byron and see what adventures he's on and whether he's found himself some mistletoe. Well, Byron, as you can see, very little. The stomach is working hard and the flies are around, but the lions are very sleepy indeed. So we managed to find the female and the cubs. So there's the female lying there, and the cub is just behind her there in the grass. You can see it lying there. That's the little cub. It's very difficult to see anything in this long grass. It's almost impossible. And if you were walking around here, you would have to really walk right on top of them before you would see them. And funnily enough, in that little area you can see lots of flies. So that's about the only activity that's happening, is this tummy that is working hard to try and digest this mass amount of protein that's been shoved inside there, and all the little flies that are bouncing around all over the place that are attracted by bits of meat, as well as the fur of the lions. Is quite nice to just sit on and take it easy, and lots of sort of surface area to be lying on. They will be driving these lioness crazy. Those are those biting flies, so the ones that really aren't very pleasant. And Steph explained it very well the other day, that a biting fly is like, it lands on you and then it's just this slow increase in pressure that eventually starts to become painful. So it's almost like when you get burnt, there's a delay in the sort of pain arriving at your brain. So the fly lands and then it just steadily gets more and more painful, and all of a sudden then you realize, actually no, that does hurt, and that's when you chase them away. So it will be probably driving this lioness absolutely mad. Now you can see there's her eye on the right side. It's got a little bit of a cut over it at the moment, so she's obviously had a little fight with somebody, and probably in all likelihood to do with food and competition over a carcass. Like I say, they did kill a warthog yesterday, so a warthog is not a big meal for all of these lions. They would have fought quite a bit over that, and that's why she's got that. Danya, the animals can die from tick infestation. So I've seen giraffe that have been compromised due to like a leg injury, or have some sort of problem with mobility that allows ticks to really get onto them, and them not to be able to go over trees and scrape them off, or be able to move into areas where they can get rid of those ticks. They get a massive infestation of ticks, and then that can cause problems and they can die from it. So it is possible. Animals with too many ticks most definitely can. A tick has basically a poison in its saliva, and so when it's feeding off these animals, little bits of it and at a time is not really going to affect you. But if you get massive amounts of it being pumped into your bloodstream, it causes a staphylococcus infection, which can be fatal to some of the animals out here. So you find it's normally weakened animals that have some sort of injury that start to pick up high loads of ticks, and the more they pick up, the more the immune system is being punished, the harder it is for them to overcome it, the more ticks arrive, and eventually they get too ill, and they then can't, in the case of predators, hunt. In the case of herbivores, they can't move around enough to get enough food and enough water to sustain themselves, and they then die from it. So it's not a very pleasant thing, but it does happen. But you need thousands upon thousands upon thousands for that to happen. One giraffe in particular that I was thinking about now, I remember seeing it, and its whole stomach and inside of its legs, you could not see any white whatsoever. It was just a black crawling mass of ticks that its legs and stomach was. It was horrible, and that poor animal had a broken leg and it wasn't able to move around, and these ticks were just all over it, and it eventually just wasted away from that and passed away and was eaten by lions. But it was quite something to see. Now, I think these lions are done for the day. Surprisingly enough, around them is a male lion and another female and another cub. So you can see there is the hair for that male just sticking through the grass. So you wouldn't expect there to be another lioness in this area as well, but there is, and another cub. So there is actually 5 lions lying in that area, and if you can spot 5 lions in that picture there, I would be very, very impressed. Now, sorry Lou, I did not catch the name of the viewer that was asking about whether the injured zebra was eaten by the lions. Penny Pine. Hello, Penny Pine. Sorry, I didn't get your name the first time round, but you're wondering if the lions ate the injured zebra. Penny, I'm not sure. So I know James had a different injured zebra to the one that we had on quarantine, and it seems both have gone missing. So whether it was the lions, I don't know. The lions, like I say, killed a warthog yesterday. That I know for sure because it was seen and the people saw the carcass of the warthog. And that's that full belly. But they, in all likelihood, could have killed that zebra. I have not seen it. I have not seen the zebra on quarantine. And I would imagine that probably both of them maybe have been killed. It's very, very possible. Just remember that there was also at one stage 3 lionesses here, the 2 cubs and 3 Birmingham males. So that particular evening, it's very possible that they got hold of that zebra because that was the day James saw them. And between the 3 males and these 3 females, they could easily have eaten that completely before we even got there in the morning. And they were very full-bellied the next day, so I mean, it's a hypothetically, it could have happened. We just don't know for sure. I suppose time will tell if somebody finds a carcass or if there's any sort of sign of it, or maybe the zebra reappears. But no one knows for sure if that zebra has been eaten or if it is still alive. But it would surprise me if it is still alive, because generally when zebras have an injury like that, like the one on quarantine or the one here, they typically are very sore, so they don't move massive distances. They try and stay in an area to recuperate, especially an area that's got short open grass and water. They're going to try to stay there as much as possible because that's the perfect habitat for them, and they're able to get the nutrients that they need as well as water that they need to survive. This fighting of the disease and the immune system trying to recover from this attack is going to require a lot of nutrients and water, and so it will be very, very difficult if that animal moves and walks away from those areas. And the only reason it would probably do that is if it was chased again and adrenaline kicks in and it tries to run out of that area. But like I say, they haven't been seen anywhere else, and so you would typically think that they would be somewhere close by in a similar kind of environment, and there's been no sign of them, so I don't think that either of them are alive, to be honest. But you never know. You can never say never until we actually find a carcass or until we see them again. We can't make 100% sure of either. There's very little movement. They found themselves a perfect spot because there's a big marula tree behind us that is creating lots of shade. So there's the marula tree, and the sun is coming just through there, and so this is a perfect little shady part that they can lie in. And so all of the lions moved into this and they've laid down, and I think this is where they're going to try and stay for the day and just follow the shade around. B Smithy T, you're wondering how hot is it right now? Well, it's about 22 degrees, which is about 78, I think, somewhere around there, Fahrenheit. So it's fairly warm. I think it's actually maybe hotter. 72, sorry, thanks Lou. It actually feels a lot warmer than that, to be honest. There's a slight wind that is blowing, and that's maybe the wind chill is causing it to come down, but it's definitely not very cold. In the sun itself, and if you're sitting directly in the sun, it's starting to get quite hot. In fact, both VM and I have taken our jerseys off because of it. When we're driving, it's still a little bit cool. Like I say, the wind is quite chilly, but sitting in the sun is lovely and warm, and it's a typical autumn's day. Like I say, the summer is starting to just wane a little bit, and we're ending up with these days that are these beautiful, sort of bright, crystal blue, clear skies. And then this sort of nice sun that just comes down, but there is this cooler sort of air that is moving through on the wind that is cooling it down and not making it feel like the stifling heat of the summer sun. And that's about right time. We are now approaching the 1st of April, which is crazy. This year has gone very fast, but as soon as sort of April comes, that's normally as we start moving into our autumn or our fall, as it's known as. And we generally have very short autumns, falls, or springs. Normally they're only about sort of 4 to 5 weeks long, and then we go into winter. It's quite an interesting thing in this area. We seldom have long sort of periods in changes of temperature. It goes quite quickly, and you can actually notice it there with that lioness, is that the tops of the grass are starting to just fade a little bit. They're no longer that vibrant green. You see they're starting to go a little bit brown towards the top ends. So this cold little snap has caused the grasses to start changing color, and it's been quite noticeable in the last sort of 3-4 days. The grass is definitely not as vibrant as what it was. You can see most of them are starting to drop seed already. So there's some Panicum maximum, which is guinea grass, and that guinea grass is quite tasty, but it's dropping seed quite quickly. Right, so talking about grasses and seeds and such things, Taylor is still wading through the grasses on her walk, and I wonder if she's got anything interesting for us to see.